Well, this year, being a year in between Island Games, we normally have a slow start to the season with many of our senior athletes taking a break or just slowly building up to sort of peak at the end of the season. But notwithstanding that, we've had a very, very tight schedule with competitions for our youngsters, both domestic competitions and international competitions for our senior athletes. And the highlight undoubtedly was the International Top of the Rock, being the first time that athletics have held an international final, a world final in Gibraltar, with over 15 world-class athletes attending the competition itself.
Well, you mentioned at the top of the interview the youngsters, and obviously they've got programs running all the way through. Tell us a little bit more about them.
Well, the competition has been tough. We've, as in previous years, we've organised road races and track events, and the participation has increased compared to other years. And undoubtedly, it's to the great effort put in by a very small group of individuals who spend most of the time, spare time, training our youngsters. But I mean, we normally have 5 road races, which makes up a league. And then we've had the Winter Track League and the Summer Track Leagues. And in between that, we celebrated World Athletics Day, which is an event sponsored by the world governing body, the WWII. And on this occasion, we invited athletes from La Linea, Algeciras, and Los Barrios to come and compete against our athletes. The competition was tough and good, and I think our youngsters had great fun. And I think that the highlight of our youngsters, at least the senior, the older ones, was when we took over a team of 4 athletes to Turin in Italy to compete in the first Challenge Mountain Race Cup. And we did perform quite well. In fact, Aaron Bagu, who's a member of the men's team, came in 11th overall, and that's an excellent position for a Gibraltarian at that standard. And overall, the team came in, I think it was on 6th position, an international team event.
Well, staying with mountain running, obviously we had the event in Gibraltar and it was well organised and there was quite a lot of local participation. Is it something that we will likely to be replicating in the near future?
Well, this is the 3rd year running that we hold this event. This year obviously was a climax of the previous 2 because we held the final, the Grand Prix final in Gibraltar. As I said, we had 15 athletes, top-class athletes, in fact the 15 top world athletes coming over. And we had a great competition. It's not going to be duplicated, or at least we're not going to hold an international next day because obviously we need time to recover financially and look into other avenues. But it's certainly an area that we want to progress and hopefully bring over perhaps a European a final or a world final rather than the Grand Prix itself, because we've already had, as I said, the final, which is the top race of the 6.
And internationally, we've had some local athletes go away. Europeans spring to mind, and worlds as well?
That is correct. We attended the World Junior Championships in Beijing, in China, and Daryl Vassallo represented Gibraltar in those championships, and he came back with a new national record at 200 meters, both the senior and the junior national records. And then later on that year, we participated in the European Championships, where Lee Taylor participated in the 800 meter again.
Hello and welcome to Storyliners. In this week's programme, our past is unearthed and we bring you more clues towards our background. To be able to bring you this and take you back in time, my colleague Chris Clifton-Seiler visited Gorham's and Vanguard Cave.
It's been described as a time capsule which until recently has remained unopened. A place where many thousands of years ago cavemen dined on raw deer bone marrow or great auk. In fact, Vanguard Cave could well have been one of Neanderthals' very last outposts.
Vanguard Cave it's a big site and it's completely untouched. No one has dug here before, so we're very privileged to be here starting work in a site like this. And it gives us a very nice picture of prehistoric life, which is complementary to the picture we get from Gorham's cave. So we're working both sites in parallel. And at Gorham's, you've got a very long sequence with continual reoccupation by people. It was occupied very intensively by animals and by people. So the sediments are much more disturbed. Here at Vanguard, we've got a different story. We've got a long sequence, but we've got little moments in time. We've got floors untouched since the Neanderthals were living on them, with bones and stones, hearths. That's very exceptional. And then we've got an interval with sand accumulation that separates it off, and then you've got another horizon with occupation. So we've got these little snapshots, if you like, of time. We can date those very precisely, and they give us a lot of information about the behaviour of the Neanderthals.
What we found last year were the edges of an occupation floor, that is a floor, an horizon or a land surface that was occupied by the Neanderthals at this particular level. And this year what we've done is we've expanded the excavations to expose more of this floor to try and understand what was going on at this particular time. We've got a sort of a snapshot in time, if you like. It's very interesting from our point of view. What it shows us is, we have a land surface here which has got lithic artifacts, stone artifacts, bone. These are bones of animals that have been brought in here, possibly hunted, killed certainly, brought into the site and then butchered.
Whereas, at the meeting of the House of Assembly held on the 19th of January 1998, it was resolved unanimously that the freedom of the city should be conferred upon Sir Robert Bellisa in recognition of the enormous contribution made to the political affairs of Gibraltar, in his exceptional representation of Gibraltar internationally and particularly in the United Kingdom Parliament, for the substantial contribution made by him in Gibraltarian constitutional advancement. Now, therefore, by way of civic honour, the freedom of the city is hereby conferred upon Sir Robert Bellisa, KBE, ED. In witness hereof, the seal of the city of Gibraltar was hereunto affixed this 7th day of May, 1998.
That's Mr. Charles Collinson, the personal assistant to the Mayor, reading the instrument of conferment, which will now be signed by His Worship the Mayor. Later, the scroll, the instrument of conferment, will be signed and then inserted into an olive casket and placed upon a plinth made of stalagmite and limestone, made by local artists and craftsmen. And that will later be given to Sir Robert to keep. Sir Robert there signing the scroll. And the Mayor presenting Sir Robert with the scroll. Sir Robert handing it to the personal assistant, placing it on the table in its plinth. We now expect the Mayor to make an address.
Your Excellency, Chief Minister, ladies and gentlemen, it is very important to be at the right place at the right time. I'm not referring to Sir Robert Bellisa, but to myself. It's really a question of luck. I have been lucky in having had the honor and opportunity of conferring 3 freedoms of the city in under 2 years. There are some who say that I'm the most expensive mayor Gibraltar has ever had.
And it seems to me you live your life like a candle in the wind, that'll fade when the sun sets, when the rain sets. You like to know it, the longing of the sweetest hill. The candle burned out long before.
13 of Gibraltar's foremost musicians on stage for this moving tribute to the late Diana, Princess of Wales.
Let's hope she hears it from heaven. Let's hope she hears it from heaven. Sing it loud. Okay. Yeah! Seems to me you live your life like a candle in the wind, never fading when the sun sets, when the rain sets.
Elizabeth Epsworth Lara was born and raised in Gibraltar and died in Jamaica during the evacuation years, along with 63 other Gibraltarians. These included 2 members of her family and many others who had travelled to the Caribbean and hoped to one day see their homeland again. More than 60 years later, Mrs. Lara's grandson, Anthony, visited the site of her burial. His search was a long and arduous one. Few records existed of the 1,500 Gibraltarians who had set up their temporary home at the evacuee camp. Mr. Lara eventually found the grave, but was shocked at its dilapidated state. Since this discovery, Mr. Lara has embarked on a personal quest to find the name of every single Gibraltarian buried in Jamaica. This quest culminated in this 2-meter-high obelisk made from local limestone and bearing 4 slabs of African black granite. The obelisk, designed and built by local mason Charles Annis, bears each of the names in gold leaf and also records a history of the Gibraltarians' stay in Jamaica. This monument commemorates 65 Gibraltarians who were evacuated to Jamaica during the war and who died there. Their bodies lie in the cemetery with no names or inscriptions on the tombstones. The monument itself costs around £8,000. A further £3,500 is required to ship the monument to Jamaica, where it will be put up in Kingston. The one question that still hangs in the air at this juncture is who is going to meet the cost of the monument. So far, Mr. Lara has paid for everything out of his own pocket, but £12,000 is a lot of money. According to some correspondence which he showed me, government committed itself to a contribution last June. Quite how, when and where that contribution will be made remains to be seen. Mr. Lara says he has attempted to contact Minister Fabian Vinet and invite him to see the monument, but with a month to go for the shipping, there has yet to be any final arrangements. For his part, Mr. Annis Sr. said he would be proud to have the obelisk erected in Jamaica. He said that with so many monuments going up around Gibraltar dedicated to war heroes like Lord Nelson and Admiral Rooke, this memorial is the least we could do to commemorate the lives of these 65 Gibraltarians who died so far from their homelands.
April opened with some good news for a change. The Ministry of Defence had revised its plans for the rundown of the Gibraltar garrison, and as a result, the projected civilian job losses would be considerably fewer than expected. Instead of 700, the number of jobs lost would now be 400 by the end of the century, 100 of which had already been achieved through natural wastage. The government said it was encouraged by the MOD's announcement, while noting that the cutbacks would still be a problem for the economy and a source of anxiety for many families.
Obviously, it is always a tragedy for anybody to lose their jobs, and the rundown still involves significant job losses. We're talking about just under 300 over a 4-year period. But compared to what had been considered possible only a couple of months ago, these job reductions are much more manageable for the Gibraltar economy, and we think presents Gibraltar with an opportunity to really diversify and to really make this rundown something which we can make sure that the economy takes in its stride with as little anxiety to the people affected as possible.
The MOD rundown was also referred to by the Commander British Forces, Major General Simon Pack, who ended his tour of duty in April, signalling the downgrading of the post from a 2-star to a 1-star appointment.
The last 2 years have not been easy, and in that, of course, I very definitely include the families. They haven't been easy as we have worked our way through one of the greatest periods of change that the Gibraltar garrison has ever seen. But you have, to a man and a woman, managed and borne that change with huge resolution and, may I say, dignity. And you have got every reason to be proud of yourselves, as indeed I am deeply proud of you.
It was 1961 when television came to Gibraltar. Man had still not landed on the moon, and the arrival of TV on the Rock was seen as the biggest advance in the story of local broadcasting. The idea was suggested by local businessman Eric Prescott, and a small pilot transmitting studio was set up in the Upper Rock. This was only a temporary base, as the studios, with an initial budget of £100,000, were to be based at Wellington Front. It was the beginning of television in Gibraltar. Satellite and private channels did not exist, and television on the Rock was seen as a big thing. Transmitting for 3 hours daily, programming was on 16mm black and white stock. In October 1963, television and radio became one body. 36 years ago, both mediums united, and today they continue to work hand in hand, following the original slogan, "At the center of everything."
At the center of everything, Radio Gibraltar.
Television programs of the 60s in black and white included an average of 14 live presentations a week. This was above news programs and continuity announcements. Many might remember Romper Room, presented by Carmen Gomez, who later became Miss Gibraltar and now works as a successful actress and singer in the UK. When Romper Room came to an end, Christine Dobinson took over with The Magic Garden. Christine, in fact, continues to work for GBC and now presents Radio Gibraltar's popular mid-morning show. Other programs included Tonight, presented by the late Peter Plant, Ken Anthony's pop program Go, and the popular quiz program How Much Do You Know, with the late Charles Hunt. The high number of live presentations, which proved cheaper than bringing in international board programs, proved to be extremely popular with the audience. With the closing of the land frontier in 1969, GBC worked hard to both entertain and inform the public, and Gibraltarians soon found homemade programs as one of their main source of entertainment. Spain withdrew the Algeciras ferry, thus terminating all land and sea connection with Gibraltar. The last ferry sailed into history at 7:30 in the evening of the 26th of June, 1969. It was that year when 4 full-length mimed musicals were presented on television. The King and I, South Pacific, My Fair Lady and The Sound of Music were all cast locally, with Christine Dobinson playing the main part in all 4 and Peter Canessa playing one of the children in The Sound of Music. At the time, video clips had not been thought of, and mime proved popular with audiences. In the late 70s, Sonia Gold, who moved on to PR work and now works abroad, imitated the singing stars. However, the 70s brought one bigger innovation, the arrival of colour television. In May 1978, Gibraltar Television changed from black and white to colour. It was a big step for the local broadcasting company, which a year earlier had been hit by its biggest operational crisis. The 1977 famous flooding of Broadcasting House followed torrential rain coinciding with an extraordinary high tide. The station was forced to go off the air. However, hours later, the hard-working staff had managed to set up a small improvised studio at North Mole, and GBC was back on the air. August 1981, the same month that the Prince of Wales and the late Princess Diana came to the Rock to board the Royal Yacht Britannia at the start of their honeymoon cruise, GBC's new radio and TV complex at South Barrack Road were officially opened by the then Governor of Gibraltar, General Sir William Jackson, and the Chief Minister, Sir Joshua Hassan, a welcomed move after nearly 20 years at Wellington Front. December 1982, the reopening of the land frontier for pedestrians, and radio and television was there to cover the historic event. 4 years later, on the 5th of February 1986, GBC was also there, alongside reporters from around the world, for the full opening of the frontier. They are pictures captured for posterity by GBC.